Thanks everyone for being on the call today. My name is Rochelle Fleming and I'm in industry marketing at Microsoft. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce our two speakers who will be leading the discussion today. Our first speaker is Dr. Roey Mechrez. He is the head of EMEA. He is head of EMEA AI at Tulip Interfaces. He holds a PhD in computer vision, and he brings a wealth of experience in both business and technology to the field of AI. And prior to joining Tulip, Dr. Mechrez founded and led an AI startup and advised multiple companies. He is very passionate about the practical application of vision and machine learning in manufacturing operations, and is currently overseeing Tulip's machine learning and computer vision strategy alongside the EMEA region. He is also actively engaged in working with top-tier manufacturers to realize value through the implementation of AI. Our second presenter is Austin Walsh of Microsoft. He leads Microsoft's data and AI business for healthcare and life sciences in the US. He is responsible for creating new solutions in partnership with payers, providers, medical devices, and pharmaceutical companies. And he is also responsible for guiding healthcare companies on how to modernize their data estate and utilize the latest data science and AI tools and techniques that drive better health outcomes and operational excellence. He is a passionate technologist and business executive who finds complex clinical, business, and technology challenges intellectually stimulating. Prior to joining Microsoft in 2017, he was the executive responsible for IBM's cloud division for public sector and healthcare. He has a BA from Gonzaga University and a Master of Science in Health Informatics from University of San Francisco School of Nursing and Health Professions. So thank you both for being here today to present on this call. We so appreciate it. And with that, Dr. Mechrez, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a very kind introduction. So Austin, hello, and we have 1 hour today to speak about AI in life science. I'm excited towards that hour.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun preparing for this and getting to know you. I've been looking forward to the conversation.
Right. So in general, our agenda for today, in the next hour, we will try and cover 3 topics. In the beginning, we will try to talk about artificial intelligence, AI, and what is the hype, what is the reality, definitely today with the generative AI scene. But both Microsoft and Tulip, represented by Austin and me today, we see a lot of value already, so we will try to unfold this. In the second part, we will try to focus a little bit more on the life science aspect of AI, which is surprisingly maybe one of the early adopters of generative AI, at least as we see it. We will try to speak about that and take it into practice, show you a few use cases and things that are already in production, AI that is bringing value to customers in life science and pharma and medical devices. And we will touch also the generative AI aspect of Tulip and Microsoft and combined. So that's the agenda. That's what we're going to do today. And let's start with the first topic.
Spectacular. Well, artificial intelligence, I mean, it just conjures up so many images and, sci-fi kind of concepts. But there's just a lot of hype around AI right now. And I think one of our objectives is to demystify that. What's real today? And how are we putting that into action? But it's important to kind of look back. I'm a bit of a history nerd, and I'd say the history of AI goes way back 70 plus years, right? I mean, this is not terribly new. We had, kind of core AI concepts and principles, and we started getting to these non-human computable math problems, right? All based in kind of core statistical, computing techniques, and got pretty good at that, right? What I think many of us view as good old-fashioned machine learning, of reading in libraries and blinking prompts and, creating data frames and, creating p-values and the like, all still very relevant. But what I find fascinating is how all of this is built upon on top of each other. We looked at kind of the evolution of deep learning and kind of people more comfortable with these unsupervised techniques, which have given way to a lot of natural language processing techniques that just 5-7 years ago we were doing a lot of text string matching, we were doing a lot of name recognition, but that the combination of this deep learning kind of expertise, the availability of information and the resources of cloud gave way to these large language models, right? And that's where things I think have started to get really exciting, and then popularized by kind of ChatGPT hitting the scene, late last year, putting it in the hands of millions of people, and now taking these really, complex technical things and making them super accessible to everybody. So, when I think about all the hype in the market, there's certainly ways you can, build this if you're a technologist or a practitioner. But Roey, I mean, one of the things that I thought was really cool that you were doing is looking specifically at life sciences manufacturers, right? And how you make this AI technology accessible to them, right? Tell me a little bit about how you guys are making it real in that segment.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for the introduction. I think it's super fascinating time to live in, in what's happening with AI today. A few definitions to start with. I'm dealing with computer vision around 10 years. Back in 2012, 2013, the big bubble of deep learning was introduced, with computer vision starting to move from more of a research thing. Suddenly there was such a jump in capabilities. It took 5 years probably, and I think somewhere 2017, 18, we saw already like tons of computer vision going on in production in many use cases. Now we're 2023. There is suddenly only 6 months ago, November last year, ChatGPT was introduced, and the big hype around generative AI was introduced. And the speed is just phenomenal. I think it won't take 5 years to see these things in production. We're already seeing customers, companies introducing real copilot, real generative AI use cases in real businesses across industries, by the way, but definitely in manufacturing and definitely in life science. And we've tried to talk about that later. From the Tulip angle, we're tracking technology all the time, and we love this Gartner way of thinking of hype versus reality. I would say that computer vision, or even edge computer vision, is definitely almost in the plateau of productivity, with many use cases, quality inspection, OCR, detecting people, detecting objects, classification, lots of different things that we see with customers. With that said, generative AI is probably in the peak of inflated expectations. But my assumption is that it will be very quick before we will start to see real value. We at Tulip already started to launch a few features in generative AI. It took us 2 months since ChatGPT was introduced to have a connector to Azure OpenAI APIs and provide that as a feature within the platform. And we already see features and real use cases across different personas in manufacturing that are utilizing that. So it's really fascinating to see what is happening. And I think one of the key topics that we discussed before is why life science is such quick in adoption. And that's my observation, at least from the hundreds of customers that I was speaking with in the last few months about ChatGPT and about generative AI. And my observation is that life science, big pharma companies, medical device companies are the first adopters. A regulated environment, super complex environment, many people, lots of complexity, machines, devices, complex production lines. How come this industry is the first to adopt? I have my own guess, but I want yours first.
Yeah, well, first, I agree with you. I think we've seen a tremendous amount of interest from the biopharmas, med device, in terms of how can these technologies be put to use. I think one dimension of it is you have a highly educated population, right? Typically with a STEM, math, science background, who have an appreciation for how to put advanced tools to work. I think that's really important in terms of tamping down the fear, all the uncertainty around AI, and I think that's a contributing factor to people leaning into this in biopharma. I think that there's certainly just a comfort level with these more advanced techniques that are paving the way for them to move fast. But I know you have some other views on that. Tell me about what you're seeing.
Yeah, so I don't know if you pay attention, but in the last slide, the image is generated image. I think it's a cool image, very complex one. What this slide is basically saying, and it's very related to what you said, is that the possibilities in generative AI are huge. And at least from our perspective at Tulip, we divide it into 3 groups. One is accelerating data and analysis. So, we're seeing so much data being collected. And I think many companies already did their data transformation, and they're already in the cloud and using different Microsoft Azure services in AI and machine learning on top of that data and analytics. And I think generative AI as copilot, as assistant, as features that are going to help managers, operational managers, quality managers to go and use that data for production insight, for real life value, is going to be one significant bucket. The second one is simplified development. So I think, my guess, the biggest promise of generative AI is around coding. We already, software is eating the world. Now think about it, that with generative AI, everyone will be an amazing software developer. Now that's maybe, science fiction, it's not yet there, but can we take, unexperienced people and give them superpowers with generative AI? Definitely, right? And we at Tulip, of course, we're a no-code platform, and we're looking at it from a no-code perspective. Instead of creating an app that takes 5-6 hours of work, can we do that in 5 minutes? I want an app that will do that and that and that in a free language, free text, and I want an app. So that's about simplifying development, and we're thinking about a set of many features there. The third part is how to help the operators, how to help the workers, how to help the people that actually do the work and are in the shop floor, and how we make their life easier, less mistakes, more productive, more efficient, etc. And I will pause here because I really want to know what's your take on the Microsoft and OpenAI that of course getting a lot of airtime lately on the AI strategy, but what can you tell us about how that has evolved and what hot currently?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I mean, first, what I've learned about what you do, right, that low-code platform of making all of these kind of more advanced capabilities, you lower the barrier of entry, right? You make the, I like to say, give, mere mortals these superpowers, right? I think you've talked about the superpowers as well. And that is very much, I think, an evolution of how these services are being made available on cloud platforms. So, Microsoft, we've been in the business of AI for many, many years. I think, kind of jokingly about the blinking prompts and reading in libraries and creating data frames, certainly that was kind of our history and our comfort level in doing data science at scale. Is kind of a core capability of what we do. However, that kind of gave way to these cognitive services or different microservices callable via an API that might mimic human function, something that could do speech to text, vision services, things of that nature. But most people had to be developers to take advantage of those types of things. And so what you guys are doing in terms of saying, hey, I could take that capability, but I can make it available to somebody in a low code platform is really, really quite, amazing. It's just very empowering. It's very much in alignment with Microsoft's mission of empowering every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And then when you make these things more accessible, and again, the OpenAI ChatGPT phenomenon, where millions of people could have the conversational interfaces, I love that you brought up this idea of a co-pilot, because we're infusing this concept of a co-pilot. Remember, it's not autopilot. It's not doing everything for you. It's very much working with you in almost every aspect of our portfolio, whether that be code generation in GitHub Copilot, whether that be the automatic creation of reports in something like Power BI, or these discrete consumable cognitive services that you guys have done an incredible job of integrating into your platform to simplify the access to it. And so, our strategy has really been about, giving access to all of these capabilities in the different domains, whether that be a technical domain, right, as a, data engineer, data scientist, or maybe, a business user or a super user in terms of data visualization or report builder. And that's really core to what we're doing as well, is just making that more accessible in our core platform, but then also working with partners who really understand the regulatory landscape, the business process, the unique requirements of life sciences companies. So I think that's why our partnership with Tulip is so important.
Absolutely. We value the partnership with Microsoft, and when we a big part of Tulip is connectivity, right? And we really invest a lot in being able to connect to different systems, different APIs and services. And what is presented here on the slide is actually a slide from April. So in Hannover Messe earlier this year, we invested a few weeks of work, and we were able to go and build our first ChatGPT application that is doing natural language classification for the operator in order to accelerate things, right? Imagine an operator that is writing on the application that he has a problem with machine 7 on that line, and he needs maintenance. And that automatically being classified as maintenance call and calling the maintenance to come and support. That is really low-hanging fruit in terms of the today capabilities.
Yeah.
And the amount of code that was involved in order to create this application was very limited. So the future is here, and it's already in the shop floor.
Now, I mean, what I think is fascinating, because this really isn't my background, but you're an expert in computer vision. It's really cool stuff. And from what I've seen, historically, that hasn't been the easiest thing to just put in the hands of people, right? Like, oh, hey, you go use these computer vision services and build things.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about how you're taking something that historically has been pretty complex, and putting that in the hands of the people who probably have the best ideas of how to put it to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, computer vision and machine learning is not new at Tulip. So we're dealing with that for several years. We have, many applications in production doing computer vision and cameras. And we're really thinking about that from the no-code perspective, right? And frankly, I think there is a perfect storm happening here. And this perfect storm is this combination between AI capabilities that's starting to be democratized, and the barrier, as you mentioned, is not high to access. The second one is no code, and the third one is people, human-centric. So I think this combination between human-centric approach, no code, and AI is forming the perfect storm in manufacturing, in life science, in operation, frontline operation, but frankly, probably in the world. 1 out of 5 people in the world is a manufacturer. And that's why, in the last 2 years, we have invested a lot in building computer vision things like quality inspection and OCR, and think about reading serial numbers from packaging, or helping in trial areas for drug packaging, or even in the production line to do counting of pills, or using different computer vision applications to monitor interventions in the line, and things like that. And also in the time series part. So you can see here, for example, how to connect time series data from sensors or from different machines within the shop floor, in order to understand what's happening in the shop floor, or different matrices, and then combine AI or machine learning on top of that in order to do prediction, in order to do better insight understanding of what is the trend, and things like that. The value is tremendous, it's real, and the bar is not hard. So, that's the mindset, democratization of these features. You don't need a very heavy IT team, heavy data science team in order to build these applications. That's our mentality at Tulip. We're trying to bring these tools, these capabilities into the shop floor through the operational team, and bring them the best of the best. And for us, the best of the best is the Tulip capabilities, but also the ecosystem, right? And partnering with Microsoft and adopting all the amazing tools that Microsoft are building into the platform, from integration with all the great tools like, I don't know, Dynamic 365 or Power BI, but also through APIs and machine learning capabilities, OCR, for example, right? You can connect to Azure service and easily use it within Tulip, or the Azure OpenAI API as well. So
I think that's a really important point, right? I mean, that's brilliant, because a lot of times these applications might have a narrow scope, but they're not extensible, and so users are left like wanting more features. But the way I've kind of seen your platform is, yeah, you can have these kind of pre-built experiences. You can customize those, and you can utilize developers to enrich it even more, right? So you can have the technical community or the business community. That's super powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, I think if you're in the Tulip community, you probably know, but Tulip also introduced low-code features to go and build a more sophisticated application with JavaScript and HTML code. And I think something interesting to see what's going to happen now with generative AI and Copilot, and we're already working on that and hope to release that later this year, is the ability to build these custom widgets, as we call them in Tulip, which are code components just with text, right? So text to code into custom widgets and an application. And suddenly you give definitely superpower, in my point of view, to engineers to go and build different things. And it will be fascinating to see how it will evolve and used by people. By the way, one of the when it comes to life science, one of always the things that come into people's heads is regulation, safety, compliance, validation, GXP. What's the FDA have to say about the use of AI in life science? And would love to have your take about that. I can share what we're doing in Tulip, but let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly defer to you on the regulatory side of working with the different agencies, and because I think you do that day in and day out. But I can speak to the general, risks and safety of generative, right? And that everybody wants to know, about, is my data going to be used to train the foundational model, right? Like everybody asks that question. Everybody says,
yeah,
this thing's going to hallucinate, right? It's going to make things up. And if it makes things up, then we're just in a lot of trouble because we can't be using made up data to run our business or make decisions. Yes, all of these things are real. But sometimes the news loves to focus on the most exciting, risky things. But we at Microsoft, do have a strategy, an approach, methodologies, as well as technology and tools to help mitigate those risks. It starts with our responsible AI principles, right? That fundamentally, it's important to have governance and controls over how certain tools and services are used. But we also integrate into that various monitoring capabilities. For example, prompt monitoring, or even within our AI studio, the ability to detect inappropriate content, sensitive use information, and flag that. Have like a red, yellow, green type of chart to get around certain elements that would be higher risk or lower risk. And so increasingly, this is getting integrated into the core platform, where we're creating guardrails for these core services to help ensure that when you have a sensitive use case, you are including human in the loop. When you're working with your data, it's your data and it's isolated from other customers' information.
Yeah.
That we're not sending this out over the public internet and using it to train other foundational models, but rather it's protected by kind of the most comprehensive security controls available in the business. And so, there's other elements that I think are important that likely go into the engineering of products that you might use. For example, how do you ground data on for example, large language models on specific types of data, right? So it's not, talking about, I don't know, candy bars when you're actually trying to, focus on pharmaceutical manufacturing use cases. You can, rein it in to be an expert. You can use chain of thought reasoning, which we know yields better results in terms of utilizing these tools by explaining its methodology of how it arrives at certain responses. Or these, other approaches like the retrieval augmented generation, RAG architectures, right? There's also LLM enhancers where we're reaching back out into the public internet to fact check certain things, or even using LLMs to fact check their own results. So there's lots of things that we're doing from an engineering standpoint to make these safe and responsible use of AI everywhere. And I think what that does is it gives the foundation of being able to be highly compliant, all right, in these regulated environments. And so, Roey, I'd love to hear if you feel like you're getting the tools to be able to operate in those environments, and what are some of the unique things there?
Yeah, definitely. So, first of all, love your questions to this generative AI aspect or AI aspects around safety and validation. Tulip is a validated product, and we work in life science and pharma for a while, and we're GXP compliant. But combining that with cutting edge AI is not straightforward, right? And I think the guardrails that we're trying to stick with are these six, and really trying to think about safety first, facing the fact that hallucination exists, and we need to make sure that when it comes to actual use cases, we have tested and make sure that they're sort of protected from hallucination. Can give a practical example. So we have two customers at the moment that we're working with them on in medical device, in life science, around supporting services in the field and maintenance. So think about many products that need to be supported and maintained, and when there is a problem, a technician needs to go and fix. Now, it's a well-known problem for technician. If you have the experience, you have seen this problem already, you probably know how to fix it, or you know who to call that already faced that, or maybe you have a manual or a book that will give you all the problems and what to do. Now with generative AI, suddenly you can ask free text language, I have this problem with this product, what should I do? And we call it chat with documents, right? Because it's so easy to take this book, this manual, or many documents of all the products that you need to take care of, load them as a prompt into a foundation model, and then ask whatever questions that you want, and find the right paragraph within this document corpus to give quick response. So suddenly, every technician, even with low experience, is the most knowledgeable guy in the room. And it's this the small black book for the technician that is suddenly within a mobile app or a tablet app that is based on Azure OpenAI connector to Tulip, and it's not even that complex. And the reason why I gave this example is because it's hallucinating free, right? It cannot hallucinate because it's just find the right question, the right answer within this document. So it's closed within this document corpus. It will give you a pointer to the right document and to the right paragraph. There is a human in the loop that is going to read that and understand if it's indeed relevant to the problem that he's trying to solve. And if we're at the end of the day comparing that from human errors into a human with the machine error, so I think it's clear who will outperform. And of course, data leakage is important, and make sure that there is clear separation on data and between customers and instances. And we understand also that prompting is a complex idea that requires some experience, and it's not always easy to write the best prompt. So we're trying to reduce the prompt engineering need from the use cases that we're releasing to be more concise, more specific. So that's definitely around it. Now I want to switch gears a little bit into more practical things, and move into what we see at the moment in life science. And I already mentioned before the fact that life science have so many documents in their production environment, and I think that's why this industry or subvertical become the early adopter of generative AI. So I'm showing here a few examples of practical here and now ChatGPT or OpenAI connector from Azure examples that are ready and available and can be used. For example, the chatting with documents that I mentioned could be SOPs, could be maintenance documents. you have the AI messenger that use classification triggers, also based on large language models with very sophisticated classification capabilities. Next best action or data insights that are looking on SQL and SQL queries. And we already released several features, Tulip. So we have, the chatting with documents and using PDFs as a source of data. We have translation built in, also using large language models. We have extracting text, so combining also OCR with that. We have the custom widget from text that is being built, so basically writing low code quickly. And there is more to come around analytics, around speech to text. And I will give a spoiler. In September 12th, we have a yearly event, Operation Calling in Boston, and we're going to launch very big chunk of features that we call the Tulip Frontline Operation Copilot. The Tulip Frontline Copilot, which is going to be a set of Copilot features across the Tulip platform that is going to help customers doing amazing things. And we will see that in the field as well. So, that's our capabilities. Many of them are based on Azure AI. And, I would love to get your view on, the value that you see from these features and capabilities.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on all of the general capabilities that we're advocating, right? That auto code generation and conversational interfaces. But again, like putting that in the workflow, right? Putting that in the hands of people who are closest to the real world problem that they're facing, in terms of working with SOPs or, determining what the next best action. If you don't have the context, how am I supposed to know whether or not the responses are valid, right? The closer we get it to the operator, the better. And that's just really inspiring. So I think your strategy, is leveraging all of the strengths that we're advocating, and that it's kind of ready for prime time. And I think, the nice thing is you also can communicate to your clients, our shared customers, that behind the scenes, we're putting a lot of that kind of risk and safety and controls in place to, put up those guardrails. So it's not just a free-for-all kind of chat GPT. It is grounded in the domain.
Yeah, a few months ago, we had a case where, as part of pharma manufacturing, they have maintenance operation, right? And some of them can take like 10 days, right? And this very long process of maintenance could involve 30 different SOPs. And each SOP is probably 100 pages. So, the amount of text involved in this maintenance is so complex and involves so many people and steps that using that in a paper-based mode or a paper or glass, it's hard to imagine that it even work, right? And what Tulip enable is several things. Like one is just to digitalize all of that, right? Take all these procedures and build an app to follow all the process, including electrical signature to verify each steps, taking images for compliance and make sure that the step actually happened, connected into machines and ERPs and MES systems in order to verify that all the data is stored and you have that, step by step. And then you can combine videos from the line for QA and track the orders from operations and combine alerts for different steps in the sequence. That's classic digitalization that Tulip is doing with customers. And I think that's the added value of digitalization. Now, it will be fascinating to see how we combine a generative AI layer on top of that, or computer vision layer on top of that, or automation and data insights on top of that, because suddenly you have even a more complex tools or capabilities to augment people. This 10 days maintenance procedure probably involved 50 people there. These people need to be augmented with the best of the best tools in order to not make mistakes, because that convert from business perspective to a lot of money, right? And we're talking about like 100K easily of a mistake, or a mistake could be $1 million, right? Think about do that 10 days process again, and how much drag time manufacturing you're losing. So the value is huge, and generative AI will have a critical role in creating these SOPs even smarter, quicker, adopting them into digitalized work faster from the engineering point of view. So that will be super interesting.
No doubt about it.
I think we're reaching, the 45 minutes above the hour, so we can start wrapping up the discussion. Tulip next generation approach to life science exists out there as a product, and we are collaborating with Microsoft for a long time. Available on the marketplace, and we're doing a lot of activities for customers together, which is great. We have many features and applications that we're providing together. Definitely the Azure OpenAI integration, in my point of view, is a game changer. Being able to push these capabilities into so many different places in the business, in the process, is fascinating time to be. And someone told me the other day that it's the golden age of AI. Let's see what the next 6 months will bring us.
No doubt about it. I got to ask you one more question. All right, Roey. I mean, what can people and organizations be doing now to get ready, right? For taking advantage of all these capabilities. What would you recommend to them?
That's a good question. So I think first of all, they need a digitalization strategy, right? Make sure that what is your state in terms of from paper into digitalization process. And so that's one part. The second part is, don't try to automate the process. Try to augment the people. It's really easy in manufacturing to think about the process point of view and how I'd make the better process. But I think in a complex environment, the key is the people. The key is the human aspect, the human-centric approach, how you augment the people to do better job, how to augment them with better tools, how you augment them to, with better user experience, which I think has a big role in this. And I think, we saw that with ChatGPT, right? That the technology of ChatGPT is existing from 2018. It's not new technology. But the way that it was provided into the world in a chat mode with very simple UX UI, that's what, in my opinion, caused it to reach 100 million people within, I don't know, a week, whatever it was. So UX UI is a critical factor, and that's something need to be taken into consideration. I think after you have this in place and you have also good data in place, you can start building amazing things. And don't need to invent the wheel, right? There are already so many great tools out there in Microsoft Marketplace and in Microsoft Azure cognitive services, and within Tulip. And I can mention the Tulip library maybe. So the concept of the Tulip library is an app store that already exists with many ready applications. So you don't need to start from scratch. We have connectors to different systems, custom widgets, and different components that help you start much quicker. Of course, connection to OpenAI services and to Azure services. So that's, I think, lowering the bar, democratizing. And maybe one last topic is what we term, or the world term, the citizen developer, right? And okay, you can bring your favorite system integrator to go and build amazing things for you that has big room in complex environment. But if you are able to build this muscle of citizen developer, of engineers from the new generation that are capable of writing some code, of do-it-yourself mentality, they maybe played with an Arduino in university and wrote few Python codes. These people, if you give them the toolbox and open their minds to be creative, they will create the best solutions. So I really advocate for the citizen developer approach. I think it's unleash creativity in an unprecedented way.
I love it. I love it. And if I may, one of the things I think I glossed over was Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI, right? That we invested $13 into OpenAI and effectively have the enterprise offering. We brought the core cloud scale, and people are, wait, OpenAI and Microsoft, what's that relationship there? Very, very tight, where we have the first party service being made available for enterprise data. And also just all of you, the people that are kind of, interested in this topic, the fact that you'd show up here, that you're going to be the change agent, right? We still need change agents and advocates to be able to communicate what is this stuff. And how might you familiarize yourself with the concepts? It could be as simple as, using Bing Chat, which, I never thought I'd be out here advocating using Bing Chat. I've just been a Google user for so long, right? But it is quite amazing just having a conversational interface. It teaches me, it's taught me to engage with systems in new ways. We do need to rewire the way we think about engaging with systems in these conversational interfaces. And again, that extensibility, just getting your information into the cloud, having an Azure environment, just making sure that some of the foundations are in place will make your life so much easier if you can say, yep, we have an Azure subscription, we have our data up there, look at all the incredible things we can go do. Hey, Roey, I always, every time we get together, I learn a lot from you. I love hanging out. And, even better, I think we can go and solve some real world problems here with our life sciences customers. So thanks so much for your time. And it looks like we can do a little bit of Q&A. If there's any questions out there, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think there is one question here about use cases and what are the most common use cases that bring the best value, maybe, or the combination between no-code application and AI. There is no one that is really the top on top of my mind that is more than others, but I will split it into three buckets, right? One is computer vision applications, could be inspection, could be just classification of, okay, not okay type of processes, defect detection, counting of pills, detecting intervention in the line with cameras above the line, finding foreigner objects. I think, action recognition is something that is quite popular. Frankly, I think that OCR is probably the easiest to use and the most common use case that I've seen in computer vision in manufacturing, because it's just so simple. It helps so much on digitalizing documents and, just converting things into a digital form. Think about, packaging that you want the information from, or a document, or a bill, or a shipment, or a label that you just want the information. You can also connect into different devices that are printing different labels into the shop floor that you can use. So that's the computer vision bucket. The second bucket, I think, is connecting into machines and devices. And I think with different sensors and tools, you can connect to these machines. You can do machine tracking and machine monitoring and maybe predictive maintenance. But also you can just track different trends and analytics in what's happening in the shop floor. try to predict what is the trend, what will be the next value, the next popular things. So that's the time series. And probably the most promising one is around generative AI, or Copilot as we prefer calling it within Tulip. And that's going to touch many, many different areas. We already have the services use case that I mentioned that I think is super useful. We have the AI messenger that is very useful for workers and operators in the shop floor. We will see speech to text. So in environments that, hands are not free and you need to use speech into convert it into a text, super helpful. And I think these elements, translation, by the way, is really interesting. I mentioned, the chatting with documents. It's completely language agnostic. With the current capabilities of the language models, you can write with whatever language you want. You will get answers in whatever language you want, and you can load documents in whatever language you want. So this is, language barrier redefined. So it will be really cool to see, and I think there is a lot to adopt right now. I think another question here, maybe you want to take it, is how do we maintain, governance with implementation of AI use cases and no-code applications? You probably know the AI angle of governance. Oh, you're on mute, Austin.
Yeah, this is a great question. Thanks for posting that in the Q&A. So data governance is, I think, integral to this modern data estate of when you're putting information in the cloud and having these kind of these modern repositories, whether those be kind of relational databases, file stores, a data lake, increasingly these lake house-based architectures, having a scannable repository and doing the classifications of that, doing change data capture and logging all of that is wired into many of our core products today. So going back into your data catalog and business glossaries, we've invested heavily in the integration of our data governance tools, both our first-party offerings like Purview, or even our partners, the third-party governance tools, to ensure that there's full traceability and transparency on what's touched, how's it accessed, where does it go. Naturally, within the Microsoft ecosystem, we have a higher degree of fidelity there. I think I saw another question also around security aspects of it. And a lot of this is configurable. Like, can I turn it on or turn it off? I talked about responsible use and the tooling that goes into that as well, around the monitoring of the use of these. And again, remember, much of what we're talking about is either delivered as a SaaS experience managed by Tulip, or within your own private Azure environment. Mm-hmm. That, as I kind of mentioned, as a great way to prepare for this is having your enterprise landing zones and having your kind of core cloud governance and how you put your data in the cloud. All of these things come together, and I think that's the power of Azure and our partner ecosystem, is that we build those things together. And so if you'd like, feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you up with whoever supports you from a modern data estate and data governance standpoint, and we can deep dive into any questions people have offline. Yeah,
that's great. And I think there is another question about cybersecurity of copilots. My take about that, I don't think it's any difference from any other technology, right? Of course, it has cybersecurity risk and as any other software, but frankly, it's to defend it, it's like defending any other software, right? You have secured login and leaning on the cloud infrastructure as the best security solutions, and make sure that your environment is protected with the right needs, I don't see a big any different risk here. When it comes to Tulip and the connection to Azure OpenAI, it's based on API and secured network communication. So I think it's very similar to any other system integration between, connection between systems. And of course, if you are in a very sensitive environment, there are also even more severe manners that you can take. I think, in my opinion, that's quite covered.
Yeah, and on that cyber element, I think that's precisely why I think Microsoft was so interested in the partnership with OpenAI, and that we knew enterprises required a different level of security and controls and call it isolation of where these models run and how data is processed, as opposed to kind of putting it out over the public internet and API, a public endpoint. So we've wired a lot of that into the offerings to help mitigate that risk and then plug into your SOC. So I think that's one method of mitigating that risk. I do see another question out here around explainability of AI to regulators in manufacturing. It's a great question. I think it's been one I think all of us have been wrestling with in terms of deep learning for quite some time. Is are we comfortable with these rather opaque or the black box kind of methodologies? And I think some of the risk-based approaches have helped us further that. But Roey, do you have any comments there for the question that came up around kind of explainability of that in the manufacturing process?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the application, right? Things like computer vision that do just image classification or detecting different objects, I think it's straightforward. I think in the place where it becomes a bit harder is when you do ChatGPT like use cases, and you write something and the ChatGPT answer back some text, and then the explainability is probably limited, and to really verify that it's not hallucinating or what is the source become harder. That's why I think at least for manufacturing today in production, we should focus on use cases that are more hallucinating free, that are a bit more rigid on specific PDFs where you ask questions on, or on a tabular data that is being prompted into the system, or verify that there is a human in the loop there. So I think there are many mechanisms and systems, and it's at the end of the day go back to the way you define the use case.
Well, I can't believe it's been an hour.
That's it. Yeah, so Austin, it was amazing chatting with you today, and definitely appreciate the time, and we will definitely do that again.
Likewise, please reach out to us if we can be of help. I think I'll drop our LinkedIn in the chat, and know we'd love to hear from you and engage with you and help solve some of your problems. So thanks everybody for joining today.